Exposed. How my $2 million code fix led to my bonus denial and amazing surprise changed everything. Alex clutched the presentation folder tightly as he walked into the stifling conference room, the fluorescent lights buzzing ominously overhead. He had uncovered a critical bug in their software, a flaw that could potentially cost the company a $2 million contract. This was his moment, the chance to finally prove that hard work matters in a world where connections often overshadow merit. His pulse quickened with an intoxicating blend of excitement and anxiety. Would he, the underdog, finally be recognized? As he presented the findings, he saw the uninterested expressions of the management team, dismissive glances exchanged, eyes wandering. It felt like each word he articulated was being swallowed by the abyss of corporate indifference. Hours poured into fixing that bug danced on the tip of his tongue, yet all his years of struggle seemed to dissolve in the room's sterile atmosphere. The realization struck him as unexpectedly painful. Potential doesn't always translate to recognition, especially in a world governed by unwritten rules of favoritism and connections. This was the first of many arrows aimed straight at Alex's conviction. Moments later, amidst the cold laughter of his colleagues, he learned that despite his groundbreaking discovery, his efforts wouldn't earn him the bonus he needed to pay off student loans that felt like chains slowly tightening around his life. Disbelief tightened his throat. He had committed himself to hard work, sacrificed countless evenings to fine-tune his programming skills, and here he stood, stripped of validation, grappling with the stark reality of a system that rewarded the favored over the diligent. Doubt clawed at his insides. Had he traded his youth for a chance that didn't exist? The voices in his head were a cacophony of fear and resentment. Should he fight against the corporate disdain toward talent? Or was it wiser to cut his losses and seek opportunity elsewhere? He remembered how his parents emphasized loyalty, a value he cherished, but loyalty seemed a bitter taste marred by betrayal. Alex sought counsel from his former professor, a beacon of hope and one who epitomized the meritocratic dream he wanted to believe. Over cups of coffee, he was reminded that his skills mattered. They devised a plan to confront the toxic corporate culture entwined with politics. Yet, the deeper they dug, the more torn he felt. The line between loyalty and integrity blurred. Before they could formulate their attack, a family secret unfurled, a legacy in the tech world, a lineage he never knew existed. It sent shivers through him. Was he destined for more? The burden of expectation transformed into a surge of determination. The stakes had raised, and the clock was ticking. Would he stand up against a culture that snuffed out deserving voices? Just as his courage began to swell, doubt crept back in like a thief in the night. Could he risk everything he had accomplished, teetering on the edge of potential ruin? Would his voice ever truly matter? The silence echoed like a void, a reminder of the many who felt just as powerless. Each moment intensified the weight on his shoulders, forcing him to confront the challenge ahead. Now, as the hour neared, the battle between ambition and fear played on repeat in his mind. The finality of the decision hung in the air, electric and foreboding. Would he expose the injustice cloaked in corporate success, or would he remain silent, burying his truth in the shadows of complacency? The answer was just out of reach, leaving him craving resolution and uncertain about which path to take. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the office floor as Alex found himself seated at his desk, exhaustion draped over him like an unwelcome shroud. The aftermath of that fateful meeting lingered in his mind, every unreturned call and whispered joke echoing like a taunt. It wasn't just a setback, it felt like a cruel twist of fate threatening to shatter his resolve. He had hoped the week would end with validation, but instead faced a barrage of questions about his worth, his path, and, ultimately, his future. Alex stared blankly at his computer screen, no longer just lines of code, but a reminder of all he had poured into his work. He leaned back, feeling the weight of his uncertain journey pressing against him, battling emotionally against the very core of his integrity. The stories his professor had shared, filled with the triumphs of those who had harnessed adversity, flickered in the crevices of his thoughts. Yet here he was, an anomaly in a storm where merit fell short in the realm of recognition. As he mulled over his options, a strange sense of determination bubbled within him, bubbling up like a wellspring. He could remain shackled by disappointment or climb out of this pit he found himself in. Gathering his scattered thoughts, he considered launching an internal initiative. Perhaps a meeting geared toward transparency could foster some change within the company or, at the very least, provide a platform to challenge the stifling corporate culture that seemed to thrive on silence. Yet fear gnawed at him. The fragility of this budding plan ignited his anxiety. The thought of standing before the same dismissive faces that had belittled his contributions sent a cold rush through him. What if they shot him down again? What repercussions would his honesty invite? Unsure, Alex stood, pacing the confines of his small space, wrestling with the implications of his next move. A click of the mouse broke the silence, redirecting his thoughts to his family's legacy. It wasn't just a story, it was a bloodline teeming with talent and intellect. He imagined his ancestors, fighting through their struggles, carving possibilities out of impossibilities. Would they respect his refusal to speak up? Or would they harbor disappointment for a hesitation to reclaim their legacy through his voice? With renewed fervor, Alex started drafting a proposal transforming confusion and pain into a structured plan of action. He sketched ideas for an internal presentation aimed at bridging the gap between merit and recognition, highlighting the importance of accountability within leadership. He envisioned a gathering, a forum where people shared their experiences, fostering understanding among peers. Could his initiative spark a shift? Or would it merely amplify the discord that already simmered beneath the surface? Despite the growing excitement, self-doubt crept back in, whispering that he could be overstepping, risking too much. What if it failed? He could already envision the glances of scorn, the dismissal of his idea as naive. But on the other side of that fear lay something exhilarating. Wouldn't he standing firm against complacency, even if it meant rebuke, be a victory in itself? He paused, his fingers hovering above the keyboard. The moment was approaching, a choice laden with risk or a pathway back to silence. As he pressed down on the key, summoning courage, he could sense the tremor of something more significant at play, something that transcended his own challenges. This was about reclaiming not just his narrative but contributing to a conversation that needed to be had. The flickering cursor on the screen mirrored his heartbeat as he prepared to send the proposal. Suddenly, a message notification pinged, drawing his gaze. The unexpected sender was an executive from upper management, an invitation to discuss future projects. Did this pave a new route, or was it merely a distraction from his resolve? With trepidation, Alex realized he was standing at the threshold of change. How that change would unfold remained uncertain. But the time had come to find out. The next day, the ordinary buzz of the office seemed to pulse with new energy around Alex. Each footstep echoing in the corridor, each murmur in the break room, felt somehow layered with potential. Yet, the weight of the invitation to meet with upper management loomed over him, dark and foreboding. It kept swirling in his mind, diverting his attention from the proposal he had laboriously crafted. Was this meeting a timely opportunity or a distraction from his goals? With mixed emotions, he reviewed the initial draft of his proposal for the gathering he envisioned. He wished to discuss the importance of merit and recognition, a topic he felt passionately about, but also one that had the potential to backfire. What if the executives dismissed him? Or worse, what if they pointed out flaws in his thinking that he hadn't even considered? The mere thought made him shiver. He needed to prepare. Alex decided to treat the meeting with upper management as a potential launchpad. Perhaps, by understanding their perspective, he could tailor his proposal to address broader concerns about transparency and accountability. Every interaction was a lesson if he chose to learn from it. He meticulously crafted a list of questions designed to draw insights about the company's trajectory and its leaders' views on meritocracy. As the clock ticked down to the meeting time, Alex could feel apprehension swirling in the pit of his stomach. Dressed in a crisp shirt that complemented his well-worn blazer, he tried to project confidence. Each tepid smile and nervous swallow concealed a flurry of doubts. Was he ready? Would they even take him seriously? The earlier courage he had felt began to waver, Stepping into the conference room, he found a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces. The executives were seated at the sleek table, their expressions inscrutable, veiled beneath the shroud of authority. He took a breath, centered himself, and reminded himself that this was not just about him. This was about making a case for a culture that fostered respect and acknowledgement. The discussion began, and Alex felt his hesitance momentarily dissipate as natural curiosity took over. He asked one of his prepared questions about how success was measured within the company. The executives provided responses, but Alex sensed underlying tensions behind corporate jargon. It wasn't merely a meeting of minds, it was a clash of ideologies, with years of tradition colliding against the backdrop of evolving workplace dynamics. As the conversation shifted, Alex saw his opening. He mustered the courage to share his observations. I believe that recognizing work based on merit alone can drive performance and boost morale. A transparent dialogue about contributions could cultivate a more inclusive atmosphere. The words felt bold, even as they left his lips. A senior executive raised an eyebrow, and another one exchanged knowing glances. Alex's heart raced as he gauged the room's reaction. The initial silence was tense, yet something in the exchange hinted that he had cracked open a conversation that others had been hesitant to initiate. When the meeting concluded, Alex left with mixed feelings. He received some encouragement, but also a poignant reminder that change was not undertaken lightly. He hadn't received the validation he craved, but he sensed a shift in himself. His willingness to engage meaningfully in discussions that mattered was deepening. Back at his desk, he realized that advocating for his ideas aligned closely with his family legacy. The strength he derived from resolving their struggles infused him with a newfound resilience. His proposal felt increasingly tangible, and he knew that refining it for his next audience, his colleagues, was critical. As he typed away, strategically adding insights from his meeting, a thought sparked a mix of excitement and fear. The initial idea of the gathering transformed into something larger, brighter, and perhaps more audacious than he had initially envisioned. But the lingering question was, would his colleagues embrace this new direction? Or would he face the same apprehension that had haunted him before? Determinedly, he pressed save. The road was winding, and as he prepared for his next steps, he realized that he was not just fighting for recognition, he was sculpting a legacy of his own. As he glanced around the office, it struck him that the battle ahead would not only define his career, but would ultimately shape who he was becoming. The real test lay just ahead. Eyes darting around the office, Alex felt the familiar buzz morph into a pressure cocoon. He could almost hear heartbeats thumping in tandem with his own growing anxiety. His desk, cluttered with papers and reshaped thoughts, was a testament to his restless nights and fervent dreams. The realm of ideas he had envisioned for the gathering began morphing into a daunting horizon. What if his colleagues didn't see the merit in the proposal? The haunting echoes of self-doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps he was fighting a colossal battle alone. He stood up, needing to ground himself outside of the clamor of his mind. Taking a deep breath, he headed toward the break room, where the scent of coffee beckoned him. Overhead, fluorescent lights buzzed, casting a stark glow on the gathered faces chatting effortlessly, oblivious to the inner tumult that Alex was grappling with. They were colleagues, but he felt like a stranger, an outsider with a mission that danced dangerously close to failure. While he sipped his coffee, he caught snippets of conversations that circled around the water cooler, praises for the latest campaign success, shared frustrations about office logistics, banter about weekend plans. It reminded him of the camaraderie that seemed so distinctly embedded in the culture. Yet, there he stood, an outsider with a bold vision. "Hey, Alex," greeted Jenna, a friendly colleague. "You're looking a bit lost. Everything okay?" Her genuine concern sent a jolt through him. Was he allowing his doubts to spill into his demeanor? "Just thinking about my proposal for the gathering," he replied, masking the tremor in his voice. "Wondering how to get my ideas across effectively." She offered a reassuring smile. "You've got great ideas. Just remember to keep it relatable. At the end of the day, it's about what resonates with the team." Her words ignited a flicker within his heart. He realized that relatability was a bridge connecting ideas to an audience. As the weight of inspiration settled on him, he took a moment to acknowledge his own strengths, his ability to articulate, to empathize with others, and to champion innovation. These were qualities he had acquired over years of navigating complexities, both personal and professional. Reinvigorated, he made his way back to his desk. Perhaps, instead of treating the forthcoming gathering as a daunting battleground, he could position it as a collaborative space, a canvas where ideas would mingle. He opened his document again and started revising. He needed to dissolve any intimidation surrounding the proposal, showing it as a champion for trust and recognition rather than a critique of the status quo. But as he typed, another thought crept in. A vague emotion, burgeoning resentment. How fair was it that the recognition he sought could be overshadowed by the complexities of office politics? Would he truly need to fight through whispers and judgments to claim his place? A sharp inhale punctuated the moment, pulling him back. His purpose was to foster an environment where everyone felt valued, and that was not a battle he wanted to wage with animosity. Suddenly, the phone call interrupted his thoughts. It was his manager, Jessica, a voice firm yet encouraging. "Alex, we need to discuss what happened in the meeting with upper management. There are some ideas I think we should explore further." As he nodded, excitement mixed with anxiety coursed through him. Was this a chance to pivot his proposal, to show how it could align with the company's vision? Or was it a prelude to another round of scrutiny? The stakes felt higher than ever. After ending the call, an unsettling realization settled in, a lingering doubt that though he was ready to present his thoughts to his colleagues, there were still obstacles baked into the organizational framework he hadn't fully grasped. Would uncovering these dynamics reveal hidden talents or only further complicate his journey? With his mind racing, Alex pressed save one more time, but the uncertainty of what awaited him stung, prompting a shift in his heart. This was more than just about recognition. It was about resilience, growth, and the secrets of the workplace he had yet to decode. With newfound resolve, he prepared himself for the nexus of truth lurking in the conversations ahead. He could no longer be just a spectator in the game of his career. As he returned to his tasks, the overarching question loomed ever larger. How deeply hidden were the currents running beneath the surface of his workplace? What would he uncover next? Alex's heart thudded as he approached Jessica's office. Each step felt like a countdown to an impending revelation or disaster. He knocked softly, and her voice welcomed him in, tinged with warmth, but holding an undercurrent of urgency. "Alex, come in. We have a lot to discuss," she said, motioning for him to take a seat. The air carried a scent of citrus from the diffusers. She favored a strange juxtaposition against the tense atmosphere. "Thanks for meeting with me," he managed, forcibly steadying his tone. A simmering cocktail of excitement and dread bubbled within him, blurring his focus. After exchanging pleasantries, Jessica's gaze sharpened. "Let's get straight to the point. The meeting with upper management didn't go as expected. They're interested in your ideas, but there's a catch. They're looking for something more than just incremental changes. Golden opportunities often came wrapped in challenges." "What do you mean?" She tilted her head slightly. "They're seeking a transformative approach, something bold that can affect our bottom line significantly. They have this idea about leveraging unique propositions, but it needs refinement. They're counting on you to help develop the details." A wave of doubt washed over him. This was a chance to innovate, but also a potential pitfall. "I see," Alex replied slowly, his mind racing through possibilities and pitfalls alike. "But how can I ensure that my vision aligns with their expectations? The last thing I want is to fall flat." Jessica's response was assured. "You must show confidence in your approach. Your previous work indicates you can think outside the box. Lean into that. Yes, you'll face skepticism, but you have something they need. This isn't about playing it safe. It's about taking calculated risks." Calibrating his mental gears to absorb her advice, Alex contemplated the implications. This was less about crafting a proposal. It was about opening a door to innovation that may have been previously closed. To reach the zenith of what he envisioned, he would have to confront the very people he once feared would dismiss him. "Alex, I need to stress something," she continued, leaning forward, establishing an intimate yet potent connection. You have something many here don't, a fresh perspective. Use that to galvanize those around you. It's time to assert yourself. No more second-guessing. Her words concluded with a note of both encouragement and demand for authenticity, resonating deep within him. With each passing moment, the notion of embracing this challenge morphed from a daunting task to an exhilarating ambition. It ignited a resolve to confront not just management, but any lingering self-doubt that shackled his potential. As she filled him in on the specifics of the presentation, he began formulating strategies in his mind, noting the unspoken rules of office dynamics he would have to navigate. The complexity of interpersonal relationships had always intimidated him. He recalled how they had clouded his past attempts at collaboration. Those layers of ambiguity and hesitation were enemies he would now face head-on. When the meeting adjourned and Alex returned to his desk, his heart was pounding with renewed purpose. Ideas collided in his mind, each urging him forward. He could draft this new proposal, integrating radical shifts while maintaining a sense of relatability, as Jenna suggested. But underlying currents of office politics still whispered caution. What alliances could he leverage, and what rivalries lay in the shadows? Would the support he sought be merely a facade, masking undermining behaviors? Steeling himself, Alex opened a blank document on his laptop and began mapping out the vision. He had been reluctant to share the very essence of what could disrupt the status quo. As he wrote, a realization dawned on him. Courage wasn't simply about having bold ideas, it was about revealing oneself in the process. The greater risk he took, the more personal stakes appeared. Would he risk vulnerability to show his true self, or mask it to fit within the confines of preconceived notions? Tension mounted, and as he prepared to shape this transformative vision, a distinct question lingered in his mind. How far was he willing to go to ensure his ideas faced the light? And would he be ready to confront the adversaries that lurked in the familiar corners of his professional life? The stakes were higher than he had ever anticipated. And as he initiated a new trajectory, the thrill of the unknown beckoned. What would he discover hiding behind the faces of those he worked with daily? The rhythm of Alex's thoughts quickened as he crafted his proposal. Every keystroke was infused with urgency and fear, the duality of creation and destruction pervading his workspace. He needed clarity, yet ambition often clouded vision. Was he ready to stand firm amidst dissent? Days flew by in a whirlwind of drafting sessions, intense feedback loops, and late nights fueled by caffeine and anxiety. Yet somewhere in that chaos, flashes of insight emerged, ideas blossomed that felt unapologetically audacious. The strategy he envisioned was taking shape, but it wasn't merely about numbers and projections, it was personal. It was a revelation of his professional self that had long been dormant. He often caught himself staring at Jessica's door, contemplating the conversations they'd have about growth and potential. Her confidence in him became a beacon as he navigated the formalities of office bureaucracy. He sought guidance from trusted colleagues, looking not just for validation but also for constructive critique. The closer he got to completing the proposal, the more he understood the importance of strategic alliances. While he pored over the details of his presentation, he realized this wasn't just a document. It was a reflection of his values, his commitment to innovation. Each element represented a calculated risk steeped in authenticity. But as the deadline loomed, tensions flared. Peer pressure mounted, with whispers echoing ambiguous concerns. Some expressed fervent loyalty to the status quo, while others blatantly dismissed his ideas before they even had a chance to be evaluated. It stung deeply. Their skepticism wasn't just an affront to his ideas, it felt personal. Alex battled against the discomfort of questioning not only their faith in him, but also his belief in himself. Each dismissive glance from colleagues was like a heavy anchor tied to his resolve. Yet, as darkness loomed, stubborn sparks of determination ignited within him, refusing to be extinguished. As he processed the vitriol, Alex returned to the pulse of his proposal. He meticulously trimmed the fat, highlighting the most disruptive components while ensuring relational logic tethered complex ideas to tangible outcomes. Each revision, each new graphic, was an invitation to connect with those who may be resistant. And while he worried about how his proposal might be perceived by upper management, a deeper fear surged. What if he failed? What if he exposed his true self only to be met with ridicule? The day of the presentation arrived, and a visceral blend of trepidation and exhilaration filled the air. Standing in front of colleagues and decision-makers was daunting. Each face he regarded could either uplift or obliterate him. Unlike before, he wouldn't hide behind half measures or cautious optimism. He had crafted his ideas with painstaking care, framing them not as mere concepts, but as reflections of his journey, a testament to personal growth. It was time. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, vulnerability etched on his face, courtesy of fear mingling with clarity. He spoke passionately, blending figures with narratives that invited his audience to witness the potential for transformative change. The applause came, not just as a reaction to the proposal, but as recognition of the journey that had brought him there. However, just as he felt triumph surge within him, a sharp voice cut through the air. Someone from management, their expression unreadable. While your ideas are interesting, we need to discuss the viability further. A chill washed over him, a stark reminder that acceptance was still elusive, and the lurking adversaries were real. What lay ahead for Alex hinged on responses that could morph into a crossroad of acknowledgement or dismissal. Would he possess the strength to weather their scrutiny and further establish his place? The thrill of the unknown felt more compelling than before, causing him to question how he would respond when confronted again. Could this clear path to his growth withstand challenges that lay ahead? Standing in the aftermath of his presentation, Alex felt the weight of anticipation in the air, thick like fog. Whispers among managers and colleagues seemed to swirl around him, their faces morphed into a mosaic of skepticism and intrigue. He focused on that chill, a reminder that acceptance was not a given. The sharp voice of management still echoed in his mind. Further discussion. Viability, these words were veils for more scrutiny, and he felt its cold embrace. In his heart, doubt began to pulse like a slow drum. Had he really reached them? Could they see the value in his vision, or was it just another blip on the corporate radar destined to be lost in the noise? But retreating into a cocoon of uncertainty wasn't an option. That much he knew now. This was his moment to leverage the initiative he'd built. No matter the outcome, he had already traversed further than he had ever thought possible. Determined, he engaged with colleagues following the presentation. Joshua, a known critic of his fiscal proposals, stood nearby, arms crossed, eyebrows stitched in concentration. Their next interaction could redefine either of their careers. Instead of shying away, Alex approached him, armed with a resolute mindset. "Hey, Joshua," he started, voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his chest. "I'd love to hear your thoughts on the proposal. What parts do you see needing more clarity?" Surprised, Joshua relaxed his arms, the tension in his face morphing into contemplation. "You really want my feedback?" "Absolutely," Alex replied, his tone earnest. "I think constructive critique could help sharpen my approach." The conversation took on a life of its own, shifting from potential conflict to genuine dialogue. As they compared viewpoints, subtle shifts in Joshua's demeanor appeared. His initial skepticism softened into curiosity. They dissected various sections of the proposal, and with each exchange, Alex felt his confidence solidifying. He realized the importance of engaging with dissent. It was an avenue for growth, a chance to illuminate the brilliance behind his ideas. That evening, Alex sat in his apartment surrounded by stacks of papers filled with notes and new insights. Revisiting his proposal with Joshua's perspective brought new details to light. He restructured his arguments, integrating data points and clarifications that responded directly to the hesitations he had witnessed in the boardroom. As deadlines approached, pivotal thoughts raced through his mind. What had once felt like an isolated venture now appeared as a collaborative journey, a synthesis of perspectives that could elevate the entire concept. The human element in his analysis merged with professional pragmatism, giving way to a more polished presentation. His nights began to evolve into a new cadence. They became a mixture of growth and persistent fear, this time fueled not by anxiety alone, but by a fierce desire to see his vision flourish. However, just as he found rhythm in this development, an unexpected email lit up his screen, a formal request for a follow-up meeting with upper management, the very individuals whose reservations had unsettled him earlier. "Prepare to defend your proposal," the stark subject line read, striking harder than any previous criticism he'd encountered. His pulse quickened, every ounce of confidence that had taken weeks to build now shattered in an instant. The potential for rejection loomed larger than before, and doubt crept back like shadows at dusk. He now had a choice: to cower under the expectations of others, or to step boldly into the fray, advocating for the integrity of his ideas. With a new determination igniting within, Alex thought about the long journey ahead. In this critical moment, he could question his worth or carry himself as the architect of his vision. Would he find the courage to challenge their perceptions, or would the weight of doubt prove too burdensome this time? The stakes had risen, and the next confrontation would determine not just the fate of his proposal, but the trajectory of his career. The following morning brought an air of tension that seemed to cling to Alex's skin. He sat at his usual desk, fingers drumming anxiously against the polished surface. It wasn't just any day. It was the day he would reappear in the lion's den. The meeting loomed ahead, a critical moment where he would have to defend not just his proposal, but everything he had fought for since he had first stepped into this firm. He stared at the screen, dozens of open tabs vying for his attention. With each fleeting glance at his emails, he felt the very fibers of his confidence unraveling. Has he truly comprehended the implications behind each critical comment he had received? Was he truly prepared to defend the idea that had consumed countless hours of his life? In an impulsive moment, driven by frustration, he closed the laptop. The digital clutter disappeared, but the overwhelming fear remained. Would he truly be able to influence the decision-makers who held his future in their hands? Pacing around his living room, Alex couldn't shake the nagging uncertainty. An inseparable companion to risk, it taunted him, amplifying every worst-case scenario. Images of potential failure flashed through his mind, whispers of disappointment from colleagues, lectures from his manager. The weight of their judgment felt suffocating. But there, amidst the chaos, a flicker of defiance ignited within him. He envisioned the meeting room, the ambience thick with expectation. What if he chose to walk in and show them his most authentic self? What if he engaged them, not just with dry facts and figures, but with emotion, with passion? As he leaned into this thought, Alex realized he had a unique opportunity to position his proposal as a bridge connecting their trepidations with his conviction. He envisioned suggesting an interactive discussion rather than a traditional defense. His proposal wasn't just another document. It was a narrative that told a story of progress, collaboration, and the potential for profound change. Hours later, dressed in navy and black, he practiced his pitch, his reflection serving as a mirror to both his confidence and vulnerability. This is not just about numbers. It's about relationships, trust, and the future we create together, he spoke aloud. As he ready to leave, a small voice in his head whispered doubts. The nagging thought of Joshua, a colleague he had started to respect, but whose analytical mind might further complicate his discourse, lingered like a shadow. But this was his moment to shine, to forge ahead rather than retreat from potential obstacles. The conference room was a stark contrast to the soft ambience of his apartment. Harsh lights illuminated the table, where his proposal lay neatly stacked alongside skeptical faces of management. His breath caught momentarily, but then he recalled the resolve he had felt earlier. Every doubt he had faced had only served to sharpen his perspective. "Good morning, everyone," he began, projecting his voice despite the tremor within. The room quieted as he leaned into his newly forged narrative, weaving together elements of collaboration, data-driven facts, and a vision that encapsulated the direction he believed the firm should take. As he spoke, he dared to glance around the room, reading expressions. He noted Joshua's furrowed brow, contemplating, not just constructing counterarguments. The door was cracked open, allowing the faintest glimmer of possibility for real engagement, but as he reached a pivotal moment in his presentation, ready to propose a crucial adjustment based on the feedback he had assimilated, his phone vibrated against the table, interrupting the flow. The screen illuminated with an email from upper management, a reminder of an urgent scenario regarding budget constraints looming over the firm. His heart sank. The ground beneath his feet felt unsteady. Would they see the value in his ideas amidst their financial worries, or would this derail him entirely? He took a deep breath, and for Alex, the defining question loomed larger than it had at any moment prior. Would he allow the weight of external pressures to dictate his proposal's fate, or unleash the full scale of his vision? With every pair of eyes thrust upon him waiting for a decision, he realized the moment of truth had arrived, how far he was willing to go to defend not just an idea, but his own sense of identity within this corporate landscape. Time appeared to stretch as the silence settled heavily in the room. Every second that passed felt like an eternity, compounding Alex's internal conflict. His thoughts raced, evaluating the landscape of his presentation against the immediate anxiety of the budget situation. He had rehearsed every detail, but now it felt as if the words had transformed into a fog, unintelligible and elusive. As pressure mounted, he glanced at Joshua again and saw more than just a skeptical colleague. He saw someone who believed in logic and results over sentiment. What would Joshua think of the shift in his proposal? The idea of engaging with passion was beginning to feel naive against the backdrop of hard numbers and corporate goals. Questions circled in his mind like hawks ready to swoop in. Would they dismiss his ideas as distractions? Could he find a way to marry the emotional aspects of his presentation with the analytical lens they were all trained to view their work through? "I understand the constraints we're facing," Alex finally said, his voice breaking the silence. He felt the shift within him, a small but significant pivot from self-doubt to a mindset of empathy and enlightenment. "But I believe this proposal can actually address those constraints while positioning us for future success." He took a moment to collect himself, grounding his feet firmly on the floor, as if the weight of the moment could be stilled by physical presence. What if we were to see this as an investment in innovation? An opportunity for us to lead amidst challenges rather than cower behind them? Joshua's expression softened slightly, and Alex noted this minor shift, a beacon of hope. Those around the table were attentive, their earlier skepticism giving way to curiosity. Perhaps it was time to appeal to them not just as managers, but as visionaries. Alex continued, weaving his narrative with a newfound vigor. He drew in examples of companies that thrived during downturns through bold innovation, framing his proposal within that context. He spoke of potential partnerships they could nurture through the very networks he envisioned developing. Change doesn't happen in isolation. It demands connection and collaboration, he urged. The intensity in his voice swayed him forward, in a battle with his earlier fears. This project aligns perfectly with that vision, offering a chance for us to shape our trajectory rather than simply react to our circumstances. A murmur of consideration rippled through the room, punctuated by nods of agreement. The tension that once felt suffocating began to ease, replaced by a buzz of possibility. Alex realized he was no longer seeking their approval, but engaging them in a shared endeavor. This shift transformed the scenario. Yet just as he attained that momentum, a new burst of anxiety coursed through him. What if they saw through this glimmer of success? What if my colleagues were simply placating him, biding their time before making a decision? It would be easier to retreat, to fear failure rather than risk engagement. The momentary hesitation caught in his throat, but he refused to fall back. "I know this goes against the current mindset," he challenged, focusing on Joshua, "but isn't it time we redefine what is possible? We've been managing adversity for too long. Let us not only accept our limitations, but seize the opportunity for transformation." Cheers of agreement and supportive nods circled around the table. Sensing a field of support burgeon, Alex felt invigorated as he propelled himself toward the closing remarks. "I am asking for your trust not solely in this proposal, but in ourselves," he concluded with an intensity born of revelation. "Together, we have the potential not just to make it through tough times, but to reshape who we are and what we stand for." A heavy breath of anticipation filled the room as he watched the faces of his superiors shift. For the first time since he stepped into the conference room, Alex felt a flicker of hope, but just then, the door creaked open and a senior partner stepped inside. The look on her face spoke volumes. The air of conducive discussion fractured, hints of urgency mingling with curiosity. What new challenge lay ahead? Would this intrusion unravel everything he had fought for in that room? The sense of uncertainty darkened his optimism, poised to test how much of himself he was truly willing to claim in the corporate battleground. As the senior partner entered the room, the atmosphere shifted from one of hopeful engagement to palpable tension. Alex's heart raced. He had just laid bare his vision, only to be interrupted by an unforeseen variable. He had dared to challenge the status quo, to assert himself in an environment that often stifled dissent. But now, as all eyes diverted to the newcomer, the stakes felt immeasurably higher. "Apologies for the interruption," she said, her voice authoritative yet carrying an unmistakable undercurrent of urgency. "I couldn't help but overhear part of your proposal." Alex held his breath, sensing that the fate of his initiative hung in the balance. "Your insights on redefining our corporate strategy during these economic constraints resonate with some conversations we've been having at the executive level," she continued, her gaze piercing through the room. "However, we are evaluating factors that extend beyond individual contributions. This is about how we navigate the broader market trends while ensuring resilience." The moment felt surreal. Here was validation teetering on the edge of dismissal. Gathering his composure, Alex leaned into this unexpected dialogue. "Absolutely, I understand that the decision landscape is multifaceted. But what if this proposal not only addresses our internal visibility, but also aligns with external market dynamics?" The room shifted slightly as murmurs flowed among his colleagues. He could see Joshua leaning in, intrigued rather than skeptical. There was something liberating in the way his momentum was charging forward, a resonance that surpassed mere numbers and reached into the realm of vision and purpose. The senior partner's expression softened as she considered his words. "Convincing the board will require that same passion you exude today. Think about how we can not only sell this internally, but also frame it in a way that attracts shareholders and stakeholders alike." A wave of inspiration surged through Alex. He realized that this was not just an exercise in proving his worth. It was about showcasing a unified vision that connected all tiers of the company. "Perhaps we can present not just the numbers, but customer stories that align with this transformation. We need to reaffirm our commitment to innovation, building something all stakeholders can rally behind." He could feel the energy shift. His colleagues were no longer resistant onlookers. They were collaborators in this journey. The words flowed richly from him, a stream of ideas weaving together the threads of recognition with shared corporate vision. Each point he made was met with nods, the atmosphere transforming from apprehension into a collaborative fervor. They were no longer divided by skepticism, but positioned as a cohesive unit longing for progress. When Alex concluded, the silence that followed wasn't filled with discomfort, but rather a buzz of contemplation. The senior partner nodded slowly, her expression one of intrigue. "You make a compelling case, Alex. I would like to see how quickly we can fast-track this initiative to the board. We need innovation now more than ever." With that, the tide had surged irrevocably in Alex's favor. The meeting concluded with a strong sense of collaboration. As he exited the conference room, a new acknowledgement settled within him. He had not only defended his proposal, but had transformed into an architect of change within his organization. Weeks later, as Alex stood before a larger assembly for the official unveiling of the proposal that had now been welcomed at the highest levels of the firm, he felt an exhilarating sense of achievement. The plan had been approved not just for its boldness, but for its capacity to unite the organization in an era that called for collective resilience. The sense of fulfillment radiated within him, not just for being seen, but for genuinely contributing to a deeper discussion that honored both recognition and transformation. He realized he held a distinct position now, recognized not only as a programmer, but as an innovator willing to challenge norms. With palpable confidence, Alex concluded his presentation, earning the applause that came not just from the top executives, but from his peers who had once eyed him with doubt. They were now overjoyed collaborators ready to pivot the company's culture toward merit and transparency. As the applause settled, he felt a surge of gratitude for his journey, the struggles, the doubts, and now, the collective victory. Alex understood that real transformation came not from standing alone, but from building bridges across his organization. He had committed to a path of integrity, poised not merely to fulfill expectations, but to redefine them. He had conquered the fear that once held him back. Now, as he navigated the evolving landscape of his career, he stood firm, shaped by resilience and empowered by achievement. This was not just a conclusion for Alex. It was the beginning of a legacy of transparency and respect he would champion moving forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment their reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel.